talk to me about why you felt so strongly about doing this interview.
So, thank you. This conversation is long overdue. I've talked to my husband at the beginning of the campaign when the story came out, and it's imperative to me that the truth is told, that people know who my husband is without a doubt. This is the most important thing to me. More important than the outcome of the election. This was the most important thing for me.
Did a domestic violence incident occur?
No, never. Never. That has never been a part of our marriage, our family life, ever. At any point in our marriage has that ever been an element of our relationship.
But you did call police?
I did.
Why?
So we're talking about context. And it's imperative that we understand what 2009 was like for myself, most importantly, but our family as well. So I had my son in February 2009.
Your father passes away?
Well, he had not passed. No, my dad had a heart attack.
Okay, had a heart attack.
In December.
Okay.
In December, at the end of December. So I had gone back to work within 6 weeks of having our son, and within 4 months of having him, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. We had two options, really. I could get on medication or go to counseling. I was, again, fixated on this idea of breastfeeding my son for 12 months, and Greg just was really supportive with that. Medication wasn't an option for me. Nor did Greg ever try talking me out of taking medication. Greg just wanted me to be happy, so I never got on medication. Instead, Greg and I decided to do marriage and family counseling. So fast forward to December, and while counseling helped, it didn't fix me, it just helped give us an understanding of my functioning and the dynamics of how things were working. It helped us with our communication, but it wasn't a fix-all.
Yeah.
And so on this particular day in question, I'd asked Greg to make a bottle for the baby. It was at night. And I said he could get some milk out of the freezer. There was miscommunication between he and I days before. He had reminded me to put the milk in the freezer, and I didn't. For days, I didn't. And so upon finding out that this breast milk had gone bad, it was an argument that there was no coming back from. It shouldn't have been this big of an argument, but I turned it into an ugly argument. There was no reconciling. There was nothing Greg could say that was going to make this situation any better. You have to understand, I was standing in the middle of this vortex of postpartum depression. It was also at the beginning of my autoimmune disease. I had ulcerative colitis. It was at the very beginning of that, and my dad was in the hospital. He had just had a heart attack about 3 days before. I was struggling so bad. There was you're so far removed at that moment. I was so far removed from emotion. I was so far removed from being able to see straight the boundaries between action, inaction, action and consequences. And it didn't matter what Greg was saying, what Greg was doing. In that moment, Greg was going to pay for us not freezing this milk. It was catastrophic. It shouldn't have been, but it was catastrophic.
Yeah.
Our therapist worked so hard in showing us how to communicate with each other. Greg did everything right. Greg said, I can't do this. You can't do this right now. This is going nowhere. Greg ran upstairs, got his keys and his jeans on, and left. I was calling him and saying we needed to talk. This was not okay. And he said, you're right, things aren't okay right now. When you settle down, we'll talk about things. And I threatened to call the police. He said, you should. And that was it for me.
How hard is it for you to talk about this right now?
In the moment, it's very difficult. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Greg has never made me feel like this was an embarrassing situation. But imagine having a health crisis.
But there are a lot of people out there who are going to hear what you said and hear postpartum depression, and they're going to instantly get it. You know what I mean? They're
In the moment
they're
right.
going to know what you're talking about. You're not. I mean, this is something that happens with women. I mean, after giving birth.
In the moment, you feel alone. In the moment, you feel like something's wrong with you. You know something's wrong.
You could see how this wasn't going to happen in the middle of a political campaign.
Well, and that was the hardest part.
That's the point. Like, this wasn't going to happen on the terms of the Express News or the media, or even in the context of a political campaign. We've been talking about this for 2 months, and this is the same conversation, and I don't. Just not during a political campaign.
You didn't want to have this conversation.
No.
Did you, Annalisa? Did you want to have this conversation?
I did. I immediately wanted for everybody to know. I was stuck. I wanted everybody to know the truth. But it was embarrassing. Imagine having a health crisis and feeling like you need to let everybody know. It was embarrassing. It was really embarrassing. And I told Greg several times, I think many nights, I told Greg, we can't do this anymore. We have to tell the story.
Tell me why you didn't want to have this discussion in the middle of the campaign.
Well, I mean, I think you can see just from her, the way she feels about it. I mean, this is 10 years ago now. It's like it happened yesterday. And you've got to, in a political campaign, you have to know where to draw your line. Like, what are you willing to give to get the job? And I wasn't willing to give this. If it was ever going to be told, and I think I told Anna this, we had this conversation every time it popped up in the news, which, the newspaper wrote about it 30 times. So you can imagine this is the 30 times we had this conversation that she goes, we got to say this. I'm like, no, we don't. I don't need to win that bad. Like, I don't need to give up that to get votes. So it was almost immediate. Like, when the first story broke, Brian Chasnoff wrote a story on March 21st. Within a couple of days, Anna put out a statement and said it's false. Immediately ridiculed and called a liar. Like, at that moment, I knew we could never bring this out. It's too hard on her. Like,
well,
in those terms, under that spotlight, under that glare, I wasn't going to sacrifice my wife for votes. So you had to, and I had many people tell me too, this could cost you the election. I said, well, that's fine. If it costs me an election, so be it. It's not going to cost me my wife's dignity. And if we do it, we'll do it on our terms. And I think we made that choice. And it's a choice she wasn't very happy with for 2 months, but My opinion, it was the right choice all the way.
Were you also protecting her, not just from the public spotlight, but from, I'm imagining the statute of limitations has probably run out for filing a false police report.
Oh, yeah. No,
did all those things enter into your mind?
It did, but that stuff is like 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
And when we went for the expungement, and one of the things that Anna had insisted on through the counseling was that needed to go away, right? It was...
And I was the one that initiated that process.
And so...
That's important for people to know as well.
Yeah.
You started the expungement process.
I did.
Yeah.
So when we were in that process, she had to sign an affidavit and she had to go before the court and swear it wasn't accurate. And we told that story to get there and get it done, and it was legally done. By the way, this was in 2011. This was before we ever thought about running for public office. This wasn't because of my relationships with police officers. I didn't even know anybody at that time. When this work was done, it was in 2011, and we were just
trying to
get past.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't this master plan. And some of these things were tough during the campaign to hear this, because everybody swarms around you. And the truth is, we sat there and said, and I made a conscious decision to take the heat on it. I said, let's just stick to the facts, and we'll give the basic facts, and we'll keep going. And as the pressure got on us with the wife beater comments, there were things they were saying about me that were absolutely, there were people sitting right next to my wife after she fully denied everything with signs calling me a wife beater. Like, it was unbelievable how bad it got. But one side used it as a means to get votes, and I used it as a means just to protect my wife. And it was a very conscious decision, and one I would do all over again. Like, I wouldn't even think twice. Like, I knew immediately, and the gut as a husband, that's not worth it. And even right now, we're 60, 70 days later, this thing was 10 years ago, and she can't even get, I'm looking at her, watching her struggle just to get, can you imagine that conversation in the middle of a heated, they would have called her a complete and total liar, and I would have looked like a man that was just using his wife to save his job.
Right, and that was the hardest thing for me. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm sorry, this was the hardest thing for me, was knowing where we had been in the past, knowing the truth about what happened, and seeing so many people with so much energy that was directed in the wrong direction at the wrong person. Greg, this wasn't about what Greg had never done anything to me. It wasn't about this. And that was hard for me to sit through. I received messages on Facebook, ugly text messages, that they were misplaced. It was so hard to, it was surreal. It was hard to get a grip on how to navigate through that, and it was such a difficult time in my life, and Greg had been nothing but a amazing foundation for me at that time. And I felt stuck. I felt like there was nothing we could do. And the hard part too was, you have women in one area saying, believe women. And when I told the truth, I didn't fit the narrative of their beaten woman, and I told the truth, and it wasn't to their liking. So where did I fit in all of this? I didn't fit anywhere. I was called a liar. Where do you go from there? What do you do next?
You wanted to tell your story.
I did, a long time ago.
Do you think if you would have told your story, if you had it all to do all over again, would you have told your story earlier?
I threatened Greg several times. I said, and there were times too, so I didn't sleep through this election, this entire election. I lost sleep over this, and there were times where I told Greg, that's it, I can't live like this anymore. We cannot live like this anymore. I have to tell the story.
Do you think if you would have told your story 2 months ago that your husband would be mayor right now?
No. I'm not sure that, I don't know for sure. I don't know that that's what, cost us.
We've had that conversation
yeah,
a lot.
We have.
Last week and a half, we've had that conversation.
We have, and it's you can like or dislike anybody for whatever reason, but if you're going to dislike somebody, I think it's it's wise to dislike them for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. And I felt like this was, no matter what I said, I wasn't going to make anybody happy. They wanted a story that wasn't true. I don't know what else, we didn't know what else to say.
I cannot imagine having a relationship put under the microscope like yours was. What was that like? I mean, did it divide you or make you stronger?
You know what? We have never been in a better place.
Yeah, that's the crazy part about
Right.
it, was even though, and then they trust me, they came after me on everything. It wasn't just this, it was everything.
Yeah.
And they came after my wife beyond this situation. The mayor's supporters said things about my wife that no man would stand for being said about his wife. It was horrible, and those things don't get advertised. But I mean, they would say terrible things about the both of us. I've never been a part of anything like it, and I pray to God we're never a part of anything like that going forward in the future. But being in that microscope at that moment, the best you can do is stick close to your family and keep talking about things that we believe mattered. And I think, we talk about it every day. We did a hell of a job. Like, we felt like we were right there, like there was no stopping us. We just didn't get enough at the end. And did any one thing sink us? No, it wasn't any one thing. It was a little bit of everything. This was a major issue. But to anybody, I would say is don't ever think, the thing that scares us is that there are no boundaries. And the people are willing to do whatever it takes to win. That's just not us. It's never been us.
No.
And we came in it from our faith, kept us strong through it. I think that was huge for us as Catholics. Our faith kept us tight. Our marriage was never stronger. Like I have a respect for my wife that grows every day as it is as a husband. But when I saw her operating in this, I'm like, man, this woman's on point. Like she's block walking for me. She's doing everything. And I don't know, we got better for it. And it's kind of crazy.
We did.
Even with all the drama we did.
Right. And at the beginning, we had this discussion about him running and all of the possible outcomes. Us talking about my struggle with postpartum depression never came up on our radar.
No,
It's not something we talk about. We're past that. We've worked so hard to get to this point. It was never on our radar.
Are you angry at someone
I am.
because of this?
I am.
Who?
Oh, there's plenty of people. I'm disappointed by women, I think, more than anything else. Really disappointed.
You said during the campaign in one of the ads I saw that you've never felt like a victim, but Ron Nirenberg made you feel like one.
Yeah. And as I'm talking,
do you think he's to blame for part of this?
well, I think you have a role in things. I think I would like to think that if somebody saw their opponent's wife under attack like this, you'd work to make the situation right, not perpetuate it. Yeah, I'm upset. I'm still upset. I'm upset at I'm upset at my husband for letting him go on for this long without telling the truth, without telling my story. But every single day was a day he had to talk me out of not calling you. Every single day was a day we went to bed with saying we did well today. We know what to expect tomorrow. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, I thought we were going to win. So, and I kept telling my wife, I said, we got to go. The best revenge is victory.
Do you share some of that anger that she has?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would never do what the mayor did to win a race. I would never do it to him. I would never do his wife. I would never go there. I think it says more about him than it does me. The only time the mayor of San Antonio cared about domestic violence was when it had an opportunity to get him votes. And he put it on a mail piece, sent to my house, by the way. He mailed domestic violence accusation to my house, to my family.
That was difficult.
That's the only time you've ever heard him talk about it. So it was all about getting votes. Now people can say, well, Greg, if you said it, you'd have been out from underneath it, and you could have got 3,000 votes, and you'd be the mayor of San Antonio. Sure. I mean,
no,
but
there was no.
But there's no putting your family. I mean, so what I would say to people too is when we're out there and we're talking about it the last 3 months, we just stuck to basic facts. This is what we did. It's false. That police report, by the way, is chock full of errors as it is, and it is. I mean, the report legitimately.
It's why we didn't.
It's full of so many errors.
Yeah.
We didn't even go into trying to figure out that. You know, in fact, when I would be asked about it, I'd say, look, I don't know why that is what it is, but that thing is. There are so many falsehoods in that report that.
Were you taken by surprise when you were first asked a question about this? Because I read through some of them and you said you don't remember it.
Well, by the way, this happened on a break from City Council. I walked out to go to the bathroom, and I walked out in the hallway, and Brian Chasnoff with the Express News was right there. And in 5-minute conversation, he goes, I have these notes. This is what you did to your wife. What do you have to say about that? I said, excuse me? He goes, it's in a police report. I said, well, let me see the report. He would not show me a copy of it. I said, let me see it. He goes, well, maybe you should talk to your wife. I said, fine, I'll go talk to my wife about it. And the conversation was 2 minutes. And the Express News extrapolated that into 30 stories. They had people, I think they had so many people claiming that my wife at that point was a battered woman who had Stockholm syndrome. The Express News was printing this stuff. Yeah. That she was so beaten that she was recanting. They had the head of the battered women's shelter on there saying, well, battered women often recant. I mean, they were doing everything they could to draw me out on the conversation, and that's what they wanted. They wanted a story, and frankly, I believe, I'm very upset with the Express News too, obviously, because they were clearly in the pocket of the Ron Nirenberg campaign, and we just continued to truck along and stick to the facts. So I would tell people, look, my moment was to protect my family, and no election, no vote was going to be worth that. So I took that, and I'll do it again 7 days a week. Like, it makes no difference. I don't need to be mayor to have my wife dragged through the mud and her credibility questioned. And I knew it as soon as she made the first denial when they ridiculed her for it. And I'm like, this is not the world we're going to live in. No man who cared about his family was going to put him through that. Now, elections are tough. I really didn't think it was going to be this bad. I'll be honest with you. It caught us all by surprise. And yeah, shame on people who do that stuff to win elections. We didn't go there, and I think we were proud of what we did and what we accomplished, and I think the community responded to it. It was very close. It just didn't go our way right now. It's not God's plan. I think we're surprisingly okay with it. Like we weren't heartbroken on election night. Yeah. It was a lot of pain to come up short, but we didn't. We walk away from the thing about as powerful and strong as we've ever been, and I don't sense us giving up on anything and going forward in the future either. So,
am I correct in that you're still not crazy about it? I mean, I saw you looking at your wife as she was telling the story about what happened that night. I mean, this is not
even what I wanted right now. Like, I'm okay with it going. I was watching it as a Facebook article, Facebook comment, and somebody said we had a choice between Henry Cisneros wannabe, like the mayor, and a wife beater. This was 7 days later, and I'm like, good Lord, this is never going to go away. But I have to live with that. Like, if I made this decision, I said to myself, I have to live with this. But and that's okay. I chose my family and my wife, and I was going to be all right with that. But she just would not let it go. Mm-mm. And she said, we got to tell the whole context of what's happening because, well, number one, it's for us. Number two, people struggling with this type of thing too. And with postpartum depression, difficulties in marriage, I mean, it was a tough year for us. Yeah. Very tough. And these things happen across the community for many different things in many different families, and we wanted to tell it for that. And then, it's a chapter for us to close the door. So, that's why.
Well, we closed the door on this chapter years ago.
Yeah, but the campaign is
right. Well, it was reopened during the campaign.
Yeah, and it was just I can't tell people enough in our city that this isn't our city. Like, this ugly campaign. This was, I would tell you, probably the worst campaign I've seen in the history of mayoral politics. It's not worth it. It's just not worth winning to have to tear people down in these types of shreds. And it's very scary for us that no matter what happened throughout the whole thing, they just wouldn't believe us. No. Or the things that people were made up. No. And a lot of people say, well, if he told the whole story, you would have been out from under me. I don't believe that for a minute. I think people were going to believe what they were going to believe. And
No matter what.
No matter what, because the things got really outlandish that were being said. And,
As you leave the council, what's next? Is there a political future for Greg Brockhouse?
My wife is insistent that actually it's my wife now telling me there is. But we're to come that close is a tough pill to swallow.
And I'm sorry, quite honestly, after an experience like this, I'm not sure I ever want to do anything like this. I'm not. I mean, I feel like it's unsafe. It's unsafe. And here we are talking about closing the door on this chapter. But should he choose to run again, it's going to open right back up. And I'm assuming we'd go through this all over again.
I don't think so. This is just me. I don't usually give my personal opinion in these things, but I mean, you're telling your story now.
Right. And that's one of the things we talked about too, is there's no objective here. There's nothing to gain. This was my initiative. I needed to tell the truth. I needed to tell my story. We have nothing to gain. We have nothing to lose here.
Not a vote. And that's what I was hoping for through the whole thing, was that at the end of it, I figured, well, if we win, we tell the story. If we lose, I ride off into the sunset, and whatever comes next, comes next. Mm-mm. But she wouldn't let that go.
No.
And then if we would have said it back then, people would have saw selfish intent.
Right.
Trying to get votes. Now, there's no vote on the table right now. It's just our family name, which I believe was dragged through the mud and attempted to be destroyed by Ron Nirenberg. I believe that 100%. And his team, that's what's their whole goal. The whole campaign was about Greg, was not about the issues. And they went after it, and we still stood strong. We prayed every night, and we walked away with a heck of a lot of votes. And I wasn't willing to sell out to get the last 3,000. I'm okay with that.
Right.
But we'll come back again in the future on something. Maybe it's not elected office. Maybe we're fighting for the things that matter still in the neighborhood, the issue-based stuff. I think we're going to fire up a podcast. There's a lot of things we're planning to do to stay engaged, because half the city was with us. Half the voters are with us. So what do we do going forward in the future, and how to keep that momentum going? But I will never, ever sacrifice my family to win an election. And I think I proved that to my wife. The biggest part was I just wanted her to be proud, and no matter what, that we were the same people that came in at the end of the race.
Well, we're better for this.
And we accomplished it. And there's no hanging our heads at the end of this thing. We walked out of that party that night. We told people we're partying either way, and we walked out of there with our heads held high. There was no regrets.
Relief, right?
No regrets.
No.
You feel better?
I do, and I'm ready to. I feel it's important we continue to talk about this. There was a lot of talk about domestic violence when the real issue was mental health issues.
Postpartum depression.
Postpartum depression. We never touched that.
Would you like to help women who are in the same situation you are?
I've been vocal about not only postpartum depression, but removing the stigma of mental health issues, period. Nobody should feel like they need to hide it. Nobody should feel like if they are asking for help, that's a problem. That's asking for help is not okay. Asking for help is necessary if you're going to function. And I've been vocal about that already.
Asking for help is a sign of strength.
It is. And Greg, again, never made me feel like I was putting him out. Greg was always behind me, 100%, saying everything's going to be okay. Tomorrow's a new day. That's what he'd tell me every single day before we'd go to bed. Tomorrow's a new day. You made it. Tomorrow's a new day. And here we are.
What's one thing, if there's only one thing that people take from this interview, what do you want it to be?
Everybody's struggling. Everybody's struggling, and we don't know what people's daily lives are like. And I'd promote people being aware of other people's struggle.
Empathy.
Empathy, and like you said, it's absolutely okay.
This is why I'm proud of my wife. This is my wife. So this is what I was never willing to sacrifice. She's absolutely the best part of all of it. So we can come out of the whole thing stronger. And this is why I'm gonna just, when you see the passion come up for the issue, this is stuff she went to school for, by the way.
Yeah.
And as a teacher and everything she does in her life, this is why I would never give it up, man. I would never trade anything to get away from that. Like she,
Hasn't been easy.
No, she's powerful and she's the best part of what we got going on, and that's why we are where we are today. So, I trust me, I didn't want to be here right now having to do this, but I'm proud of you. So,
Thank you.
She's done some amazing work, kept me going through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, it's fantastic.
I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate your time. This was important to me.
Anything else you guys want to bring up? Anything else we need to talk about?
No, I didn't know if people. No, I mean, people have questions about the nuts and bolts of an expunction and those things, and people have those questions. And the number one most important thing is that what we did was above board and it was completely legal. I think that's important for the police department, for the city, people that have made accusations that there was nefarious activities and people were erasing stuff from me. That stuff's false. This was all done in 2011, and.
What's more important to me is that people know that I started this process.
Those things are important to know. And a police report was, like you had said, was completely just. Was it like I couldn't even make? There was a lot of falsehoods in the police report.
Yeah.
But when we get to all those things, we made a conscious choice to be fair to our family first, and I hope people understand that. And if they don't, they don't. I'm okay with that too. But I'm more proud of her and sticking by me during a difficult time. And even right now, I'm stunned that she even is talking about it. But this is how lucky I am. And I still cannot. I told people, we told everybody, no matter what, we were winners, 100% coming out of it. And we knocked it out of the park, and no one's ever going to take that from us, even if we never come back on it again in the future.
Right.
We did well together.
We did well.
Yeah, we did. Absolutely.